Things. Welcome to the J's Grass-Fed presentation. Sorry if the camera is a little sideways. There we go. Yeah, so here we go. This is a presentation that I've created to further explain the benefits of the grass-fed system, which I've learned from my virtual mentor, Jim Kowaleski, who is a nomadic farmer, farms half a year in Florida, half a year in Maine. He's got a whole bunch of great videos on YouTube through Pete's Green Dreams FL. Go check out that YouTube channel if you want to learn more about Jim. And he inspired me to implement this system on my farm because I live in Vermont and he used the scythe up in Maine, and then come to find out through research that basically all of central New England used to be mowed with a European scythe or an American scythe. So let's get into it. What are the benefits of the grass-fed garden? Farm history that I'm currently farming on is, it went from a red potato farm to a cow farm, and then it was bush hog / hay, and now it has been a mowed lawn for 20 plus years. Wow, that's a lot of compaction steadily over a long period of time. How can we create a productive garden without tilling the soil? Find out soon. So just to reiterate, potato farm, probably running tractors, cows, 1-ton cows walking over the land, fertilizing it though. Bush hog, now big tractor, lots of compaction, and then a lawn mower, on the lowest setting it could go, more compaction. So it was working with initially really compacted soil. Nature creates our own inputs for us. So grass, unsprayed round bales, which is just grass on a larger scale, wood chips, compost, which grass and wood chips eventually break down into, could be manure, broken down, but there's also benefits of not completely finished compost, because you have those bigger chunks that will break down and release nutrients over time, rather than just having the fine finished black dirt, which is also wonderful, but anything will really work. Leaves, use what's available to you. By committing your garden to natural inputs, the grass-fed system, / the grass-fed system, you will no longer be spending money on man-made inputs, fertilizers, chemicals. That is true regenerative farming. You're not reliant upon outside inputs. Newspaper and cardboard are a lot of the times filled with chemicals. It's best to go with what nature creates for us. Let's try our best to move away from that black microplastic leaching mulch. Microplastics. Why we should do our best to move away from any plastic in the garden. There is an article here. I'm sure you could just Brave browser search, or whatever search engine you choose to use. How many microplastics are we consuming on a weekly basis? And this article that I have here states that we are consuming about a credit card's worth per week of microplastics, which is pretty overwhelming when you start to think about it. And a quote from the article I pulled said, We can stop looking now, said Horton, who studies microplastic pollution at the UK's National Oceanography Centre. We know wherever we look, we will find them. So if that's true, we would definitely want to minimalize or completely make it zero amounts of plastic in our garden. And we'll get to that with the seed starting trays. Right here, soil blocks, Elliott Coleman.
To make sure that there's plenty of nitrogen to get these little plants off to a good start. Again, 2 tablespoonfuls. I put them in at this stage in the process because I want to get them mixed thoroughly with this nice light peat. In that way, I know that when the plant roots are down in here, they will find little bits of things like that in every part of the operation. All right, I have the body, but remember when we're talking about soil, we're talking about aeration, and now I need some aeration for this mix. So the plants, if that gets wet and sodden, don't miss the air. And for that, the best ingredient is perlite. Now, perlite is basically popped rock. In fact, it's a volcanic rock that has water in between its layers. It's heated up and popped, just like popcorn. Gives you a nice, fluffy product that when incorporated with peat in a mix like this, now we have structure and aeration at the same time. And the last thing we're going to add, and the thing that always makes everything grow better naturally, is compost. Right out of the garden, last fall, we saved it, sifted it so it's about as nice as could be. And I'm going to put in 3 containers of compost. Now, there's the formula. 3 containers of peat, a container of perlite, and 3 containers of compost. And now when I mix all of this together, I have paradise for plants. Now, if you thought this looked like a cooking show so far, I'm going to make something like brownie mix here. I'm going to add water, quite a lot of water, to this beautiful potting mix I made. And I want to get it good and wet so it's almost sticky, not dripping water, but wet enough so I could do something with it that is really pretty unconventional in most people's gardening experience. I'm going to make a soil block out of it. In other words, I'm going to turn this into a little cube of soil in which to grow a plant that doesn't need walls around it. What does a soil block look like? This celery plant is growing in a soil block. And the soil block is made by using a simple tool like this block maker. It's just an ejection mold. I press this into it, push hard down to the bottom, and then eject them. And there I have perfect little cubes of potting soil, not needing any walls, in which plants can grow. What are the advantages? Well, you notice it has a little indentation in the top in which I put the seed. The walls, without any container around them, have air pruning on all sides where they're next to the others, and the roots of the plants and then grow to the edge and wait, and then they're ready to take off when they go in the ground. Now, celery grows quite slowly, so I wouldn't want to start celery in a block this big because I would have a lot of these big blocks hanging around, taking up a lot of room. So there's other techniques, even more fun. This is a soil block maker that makes 20 tiny little blocks. Press this in, put it here, and I have 20 tiny little blocks with an indentation in top. Now I put my celery seed in those, set them in a warm place for the celery to germinate, and then once it's germinated, and I have nice little celery plants, they need more room to grow. They need a block that big. Well, instead of the seed pins that are in this blocker, you can also equip it with little cubic pins that are the exact same size as those mini blocks. And so this time, same technique, press it in down hard, and then eject them. You end up with a block that has an indentation in the top the exact same size as this. And so when your little celery plant is up and growing and ready to move on, I put the square block in the square hole, and then it grows on to a big celery plant just like that. Are these things tender? Are they going to fall apart for you? No, I can actually throw this one. Because the peat moss that we put in there really acts as a binder and holds all this together. And that, in my estimation, is the best way to start plants.
Gardening Naturally will return on TLC.
Okay, so we're talking about microplastics and minimalizing them as much as we possibly can within inside of our garden. Oh. So that is how we are going to do it with soil blocks. And then the one step to get away from the plastic trays is you could make your own wooden trays. And then you would completely be freed from plastic unless you wanted to reuse plastic pots for various things you wanted to pot up to prevent them from just going to a landfill. So, and I just wanted to say one more thing real quick. My mentor, Jim, the nomadic farmer, I learned about soil blocks from him, and come to find out, he learned about soil blocks from Elliot Coleman, who is also a farmer in Maine and a pioneer in organic farming overall. So, why keep the soil covered? The soil is able to retain moisture / absorb moisture better than if the soil was left bare / helps to prevent erosion / able to better filter chemicals. Helps to keep down / suppress weeds. Weed seeds germinate, then die because it gets really hot, so any weed seeds in the seed bank will germinate, but then they just get suppressed by the thick layer of mulch, which in return kills all the weeds. So the only reason weeds grow is because the soil wants to naturally be covered. So if you leave the soil bare, the sun hits the bare soil, and whatever seeds are in the seed bank are going to germinate. The soil life seems much happier. The worms and other life forms are most of the time found crawling right under the grass when it's pulled back, and usually there's no worms or other soil life that are visible when the soil is completely bare. So it also helps to build organic matter, grass, wood chips, chop and dropping any of the plant matter that's passing on in the garden. Manure, cover crops, and leaving root systems in the ground instead of pulling them out and top dressing them. And all of the worm droppings that you get, because the worms are able to pull the grass down through their aeration holes, and then the worms are happy because they get their nutritional food, and in return they don't have to go far to feed, so they're fertilizing right in the root zones of the plants, which is exactly where you want them doing that. It is said that the highest concentration of soil life is within the first 2 inches of the soil. Interestingly enough, so are the weed seeds. So when you deep till, you're not only destroying the soil life / mycelium network, you're also bringing up all of those weed seeds. There is such a thing as a one-time till for really compacted soil, but there's also other ways. Find out soon. So a visual comparison, we have covered soil, which is just a field of, I don't know what that is, wheat or native prairie grass, and then next to it, what soil becomes if you don't keep it mulched or with something constantly growing in it. If you leave your soil bare, it will lose all of its structure and eventually just turn into sand and blow away. And that's what we don't want. Excuse me. Why should we keep records? No 2 years are the same. No two properties / gardens / farms are the same. Find what works best for your land and your microclimate. We can't depend on radar and the weather people / sites. I'm led to believe it's in our best interest to be more observant of the ever-changing patterns and document what we think worthy or of value. After a few years, you can start to compare and contrast your own records and move forward based off of them. You could also compare and contrast your records with what the weather people / sites are saying and see how those differ from each other. Try to plant crops on the same day each year or within a few days of what it was the previous year. I think there's great value in that. It keeps you on kind of this yearly schedule, and it'll be kind of tricky planting to a biodynamic calendar as well, which I would also, I'm going to get into in a few slides. But overall, just looking for my water bottle, I found it. Overall, I think that it's of great value to replant on the same day every year because the plants have a memory. And so if you replant your garlic on September 17th every single year, they're just going to be more overall adapted to the cycle. I don't know, food for thought. I need to get a sip of water real quick. Please, thank you for your patience. Thank you. It gets really dry in here, especially while I'm constantly talking. So, saving seeds / buying organic, open pollinated seed from good, trustworthy companies. We can adapt our plants to ever-changing patterns by saving our seeds each year. With all of the rain that we have received this season, over 2 feet, all of the crops that I have saved seed from last year, tomatoes, pumpkins, lettuce, garlic, potatoes, those plants are all doing the best. Still, they have produced the best, and it seems that those plants are the most adapted out of anything else because they literally already had one growing season in the soil in that microclimate up there on the hill that I am blessed to farm. So also by purchasing from local / regional seed companies, you have a better chance of getting seeds that are already more adapted to your area. Excuse me. So if you have some local seed companies in town, maybe in Kentucky, Illinois, wherever you live, those seeds are obviously going to be more adapted to your general area rather than if you live in Kentucky and you're buying seeds from a seed company in California or the Pacific Northwest. Cattle is not the only herd on the farm. There is the macro herd, cows, sheep, goats, pigs, chickens, horses, anything else, any other barnyard life you can think of that I didn't name. And then we have the micro herd, which are the worms and all the other bugs and insects and the billions of microorganisms that are the life of the soil. Howdy. Howdy, we're live, brother, so yeah. So when I got that, yeah, there's something, I think that chair should be good.
All right.
Yeah, I just got my phone set up right there, so I just don't want it to get knocked over.
Yep.
Yeah. But, okay, so when is Mow Day. Mow Day is on May 15th in Vermont. By getting your first cut of hay slash grass at slash around this time allows for the pasture to grow up with grass equally as nutritious as the first cut. Another 2 or most likely 3 times, and I can safely say that in a really wet year like we just have, if you mow your pasture at the beginning of May 15th or before, May 9th is when I started, in a really wet year, it will grow up 4 times, so 3 more times after your first initial cut, which makes it for a total of 4 cuts off of your pasture, which can all be fed to your livestock, which is the macro herd, or be fed to your garden slash farm, which is the micro herd. So most farmers, since I used the scythe, I was able to start on May 9th. Most farmers can't start the hay until the fields have dried up a bit from winter moisture and spring rains, or else the tractors will sink slash make big ruts. By the time they can start, which is early to mid-June, in really wet years, sometimes not until August, by this time the hay is far past its nutritional peak. It won't make butter, but it will keep them alive, as one farmer stated. And 2 years ago, in 2021, we had a similar year where it rained, not this much, but it did rain all of July. And there was some farmers who didn't get their first cut until August. And then same thing this year. I've seen some farms not get their second cut until August, and some people still not get their first cut until August. So there was, because it was dry in the beginning in May, and then so that allowed for it to dry out a little bit. People were able to get their first cut, but then we've had non-stop torrential downpours through June, July, and August. So just at the end of August, people were just getting their second cut of hay. So it might be one of those, it won't make butter, but it'll keep them alive quality of grasses, as to where me with the scythe, I'm starting to cut my 4th cut of hay this week, in the first week of September. And the way that it's growing and the way that it's raining, it might even grow for a 5th. And I mean, that's just no exaggeration. So the benefits of the European scythe, on top of everything that I just named, it does not require gas, which means as long as you or I am alive and well, the site is as well. There's no pollution, easier on wildlife habitat, no motor noise. It's a good skill to have. It can also be used as a grain harvester, multi-purpose tool. There's grass blades, ditch blades, bush blades. There might even be some other blades. It's a handmade tool, and it can bring people together, good conversation starter, and it creates and builds community. And it makes you self-reliant. So, moving on from that, the benefits in staying small. Get to know your land very well. You don't miss out on priceless observation that would otherwise be overlooked if you were more spread out. If you know your land better each year, you can grow more food each year on the same amount of space. No crazy mortgage or loans. Smaller properties are easier to pay for in full, or you can work out a land share agreement, a bartering system where, hey, I have this skill, I can mow your pasture for you. Maybe it's an older man, older woman. Hey, I can mow your property for you with my scythe. It's not loud noise, no gas needed. In exchange, I get to have my farm here, and I can give you crops in exchange. So there's ways without money that we can farm, and everybody can benefit from it, not only yourself, not only the landowner, but people in the community as well. So you're not reliant upon machines, which means all of your work can be done with hands and hand tools. In terms of actual farming, you are 100% self-sufficient and not reliant upon the gas line infrastructure, besides for transportation of goods, unless delivery spot is biking distance, or you have a farm stand and people use fossil fuels to come to you. They're relying upon the fossil fuels, but if you had a farm stand, obviously I don't think, unless you had a really good location, you wouldn't be able to make 100% of your income just from one farm stand. But if you did have such of a situation, that would make you completely 100% self-sufficient, non-reliant upon the gas line infrastructure, which is really cool. But there still is no fossil fuels used for this kind of farming whatsoever, and I think that that is very key because you're not reliant upon heavy machinery. So with all that being said, there is the biodynamic calendar. We have leaf days, flower days, fruit days, root days. Leaf days, plant on leaf days, harvest for storage purposes, harvest on a root day, or fruit days for best storage. So kale, Swiss chard, kohlrabi, cabbage, lettuce, Asian greens, all these things are in the leaf day category, and you would want to harvest those on a root or a fruit day, which I have done, and I can safely say that if you harvest a leaf day plant on a leaf day, it will not store as good rather than if you harvested it on a root day or a fruit day. The proof is clear as day. Same thing, flower day, you plant, and for storage, you want to harvest on flower days, fruit days, plant and harvest on fruit days, root days, plant and harvest on root days. It really does make a difference. I left some links here. There's the Stella Natura, I can never say it right, but it's a biodynamic calendar. And this is basically the map, the layout for every single day of the growing season. It'll tell you whether it is a leaf day, flower day, fruit day, or root day. And a great book, which is a great resource. I would highly recommend getting it somewhere other than Amazon, but if that's what you choose to do, The Biodynamic Year by Maria Thun. So go check that out. It's a very informational book, and it will show you side-by-side pictures of carrots planted on a root day, and then carrots not planted on a root day. And you can see the difference as clear as day, and there's a lot of good other information in there about using and planting to the biodynamic calendar. So the bricks, healthy soil equals healthy plants.
And this is kind of what it's alluding to. I prefer things to be at 14 or higher because it's a little bit safer. There's going to be some fluctuations in bricks and plants, so 14 is a little bit safer than 12. But this kind of gives you an idea that they are objectively healthy. And when they are, food is now produced. It is now fit for human consumption. When I say fit for human consumption, it means something that you can eat and that will contribute to longevity, in other words, long-term health. You will have no insects and you will have no disease on any of these plants. And these plants are relatively rare in our landscape right now. Not in our landscape, I shouldn't say that, but mostly on many of the farms, sadly. So what do plants need in order to be high bricks?
So I'll stop it right there, bring it right back real quick. So basically, bricks is testing the sugar sap from a plant, and they've created this chart, and it'll tell you, depending on what that sugar sap tests at, which number bricks tells you how healthy the plant is. So depending on what bricks level the plant comes in at will tell you what pests it can be attacked by, because only certain pests can attack certain bricks level plants. So like he was saying here, if your plant is at least 12 to and a half to 20 bricks, you will have a completely healthy plant, no pest damage whatsoever, and is completely fit for human consumption, objectively healthy. So I think that this is a really cool, and I do not have a bricks meter myself. I have never tested the bricks, but keeping this in mind, I think that it is really important knowing that if your plant is healthy, it simply cannot be attacked by pests. So if it's being attacked by pests, it's not necessarily that there's something is wrong with the plant, although it is probably lacking some nutrients within inside of the soil. And everybody just wants to spray, not everybody, but the people who are led in a darker direction will probably just spray their plant with some biological pesticides, organic or not organic, but really the nutrients needs to be increased within the soil, and the way that we increase the nutrients in the soil is increasing the overall amount of soil life. And the way we increase the overall amount of soil life is with the grass-fed system. The grass-fed system increases soil life, which in return increases the fertility. The higher the fertility, the healthier the plants. So it's not necessarily about making the soil better, it's about increasing your overall soil life, which in return is what helps your plants grow better / healthier. Once reached a certain point of health, they literally cannot be attacked by pests. Build new garden space very easily with little disturbance. Lay space with a thick layer of grass just 6 weeks before you want to plant, or you could do this in the fall and then have it over winter, like I said, or lay space with grass in the fall. After the time has passed, the living grass will now be erased. You can pull back the mulch layer of grass from the fall and plant as a bed of potatoes in the spring. When the potatoes harvest in July, have a whole bunch of cold hardy late summer / fall transplants ready. Then at the end of the season, when all those finish up, it can be planted to garlic. Harvest garlic next July and have a prime bed again for seeding annuals. This can be done one of a few ways. You could lay the grass in the fall, plant the garlic to it, harvest the garlic in July, then have that ready to get planted to cold hardy annuals. Those finish, replant the garlic, and then you could do it a whole bunch of different ways, but the best way seems to lay the grass, plant it to garlic, harvest the garlic in mid-July, plant that to the cold hardy annual starts. When those finish up, you could plant the garlic again, and that is a good way. Garlic and potatoes, whichever one you want to use, they're really good for establishing first-year garden beds. And then in the next season, you have a prime bed for annuals. So, or perennials, whichever direction you want to take it in. I know that kind of got tangled and a little confusing. If there's any questions, please just leave them down below in the comments. All of this can be done and you didn't have to till. The potatoes and the garlic help work the soil for us. Although if it's still too compacted, broad fork and then top dress with soil / compost. What's growing in November?
Grand Rising. Welcome back to JsGrassFedGarden. So I'm excited that's what's going on. And then same thing, I think it's cool to show from this side too. Right where the hoops are, so 2021, 2022, 2023.
So each year I was able to expand my growing space by using the least amount of disturbance possible. And I have a video that I'm going to show next, these beds were laid last fall with the grass, wood chips, and leaves in early November. So then go December, January, February, March, April, I planted them to potatoes and garlic. Potatoes intermixed with garlic in the same bed. These three beds right here were planted, these two were planted to garlic and potatoes. I harvested the garlic when it was ready to be harvested, and then I harvested the potatoes when they were ready to be harvested. All that came out, and then I had it ready with transplants, and I forget, I'm having a blank on what it got sown to next, but now it's completely overtaken by delicata squash, and it's became a productive first year garden bed. Now that the potatoes and the garlic are out, it can be replanted to garlic this fall, and now I have 1, 2, 3, this bed was new last year, but still 4, and then 5 brand new beds for increasing my garlic production, and I didn't till the soil whatsoever. So update to August 2023.
This is a really forgiving.
This is the same space you were just looking at. This is where the potatoes and the garlic came out. I reseeded it to spinach and some radishes, and they didn't germinate too well because we went through like a really dry period real quick. And now, I mean, I can pull up the most recent video of what this space looks like. What's growing in September?
And blessing. This was all previously in the beginning. We have some beautiful delicata squash.
So, that's the same bed right there.
After this bed, it goes to German.
We were just looking at all of this delicata squash that came all the way from this row over here, and here we are in September on the grass-fed system, non-stop rain for the whole summer, and we're still looking flourish, green, and constant production. So if we work with nature, we can build resilient food systems for ourselves and the next generations. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them down in the comment section below. Check out more new videos to come on the YouTube channel, JsGrassFedGarden VT. Putting a whole bunch of nice produce pictures on the Instagram at JsGrassFedGarden. And while I have you here, I kind of want to just finish out this video of me talking about what's growing in September. We went through August, we went through last November, so now you can just see what
Butterball potatoes with the garlic intermixed, and all of these German butterball just grew back from seed potatoes that I didn't harvest thorough enough last season.
just to reiterate real quick, this whole spot, it's just from a different angle. But in that video where I was showing how I just laid the new beds last November, I was standing right here looking this way. Now I'm in the front looking this way, and look at all the production. First year garden beds just from laying grass, wood chips,
and then it was
and leaves.
interplanted with Brussels sprouts. All the cilantro fell down, or coriander now, and now the Brussels sprouts come up. This was all previously, in the beginning, planted to salt neck garlic. That Delcada taking over there, there was more potatoes up this row, and now there is some cabbage transplants in there as well. We'll see what happens. Some Swiss chard on this bed right here. This was all hardneck garlic, harvested, transplanted to Swiss chard. This was all cut and come again lettuce that I had gotten 7 to 9 weeks of cuts off of. That all started to go to seed. I mulched it heavy, snipped it off, left the root structure in the ground. In about a week, on next fruit day, first week of September, I will sow this to direct sow to winter storage crops, purple top white globe turnip, daikon radishes, cold hardy root crops. Now, down this row we have peppers. My first beautiful pepper sets in Vermont, and that has been also prepared to be sent into winter tunnel production with some kale transplants. This, I was saving radish seed and lettuce seed off of. Now it's been planted to daikon and green wave mustard greens. Those will go into December. I'll put the covers on these right before or after we get our first frost. Right here we have some solstice broccoli, perennial wild arugula, and its second year. Elderberry cutting off some nice growth in its first year, and then intermixed back there underneath the broccoli is onions, then some next succession of cut and come again lettuce. We have some astro and uber arugula row, some more peppers on the back of that, and I also planted the peppers in the tunnel rows so I could possibly pull a cover over them to keep the peppers going past our first frost. And this whole side, well, I didn't even do this right here. So right here we have sweet potato slips. This was all potatoes, and you can go back to look at any of the previous videos to re-see what I'm talking about. It was, and then you can see what it is looking like now.
So I'll end it there. You get the gist of it. All in a 40 by 40 space this year, I pretty much had nonstop lettuce. So more than 10 weeks straight. The newest number is now 114 pounds total harvested of potatoes with one bed left to harvest. And all those Delcada squashes that still haven't even been harvested. 10 successions of radishes. I mean, I've lost count. I have it all written down. But a lot of food has came out of this 40 by 40 foot square. And I've even been able to create income for myself along the way. And just continue to keep growing my farm and making connections in hopes to find a larger space next year so I can go for like a 80-foot by 80-foot square and really start to crank out some better production, or not better, but just a higher quantity without sacrificing the quality of production. So, one love and wholeness to everyone. Thank you very much for your support. Peace and blessings, and we will have one more live session like this on September 27th. That will end this 4-part live series, and I hope that people can get something from it. So one love, peace, wholeness, blessings again, and we will see you on the next one.